Here is a fact that almost nobody in the corporate world will ever admit out loud. The most financially successful people you know did not quit their jobs. They engineered their own termination on purpose, with a calendar, a spreadsheet, and a glass of whiskey to celebrate the moment it finally happened. And before you assume this is some kind of fringe behavior, let me tell you something that should make your stomach drop. A study tracking self-made millionaires who came from salaried backgrounds found that over 60% of them experienced a forced or strategic separation from their employer before their first major wealth milestone. Not a resignation, a firing. Planned, calculated, and executed like a military operation. So why would someone who is smart enough to build real wealth also be smart enough to get themselves fired? And why would they plan it months in advance? That question is going to completely rewire how you think about your career, your income, and what financial freedom actually looks like. Let me take you inside the strategy that almost nobody talks about publicly because the people who use it are too busy getting rich to explain it to anyone still sitting in a cubicle. The corporate job is not the enemy. It is actually the launch pad. But here is what your employer will never tell you. The moment you stop being useful to their bottom line is the moment they will remove you. Every single person collecting a salary is on some level aware of this unspoken agreement. You perform, you get paid, you stay. You stop performing, you are gone. What self-made millionaires figured out is that this dynamic can be flipped entirely in their favor. Here's the strategy in plain language. You spend months, sometimes as long as 12 to 18 months, quietly building your exit infrastructure while still cashing your paycheck. You are launching a side business, building cash reserves, developing client relationships outside your employer, and timing your departure around one specific financial trigger. And that trigger is the severance package. When you resign, you walk away with nothing except whatever is left in your checking account. When you are fired, depending on your contract, your tenure, and the laws in your jurisdiction, you may walk away with weeks or even months of full salary, continuation of benefits, and in some cases, the ability to immediately file for unemployment benefits. That difference is not cosmetic. That difference is the bridge that funds the first critical months of building something that actually belongs to you. And this is where I want to pause and ask you something. If you are watching this and you have been grinding at a job that does not excite you anymore, that does not reflect what you are capable of, hit that like button right now and subscribe. Because what we are covering today is exactly the kind of conversation that your employer hopes you never have with yourself. Stay with us. This channel exists for people who are ready to think differently about money. Now back to the mechanics. The people who execute this strategy successfully share a few traits that are worth paying attention to. First, they document everything about their own performance obsessively. They know their numbers cold. They know exactly where they stand in their manager's mind. And they use this knowledge not to impress anyone, but to identify the precise moment when they can begin to disengage without immediate consequences. Second, they create paper trails that protect them legally. They are not sabotaging anyone or burning the company to the ground. They are simply allowing their performance to drift toward a clearly documented threshold that triggers a conversation with HR. They know employment law. They understand what constitutes a performance improvement plan, what it means for their severance eligibility, and how long those processes typically take. Third, and this is the part that separates the truly strategic from the merely frustrated, they have already replaced at least 50% of their salary through outside income before they ever sit down in that HR office. The firing is not a catastrophe. It is a press release. It is the announcement that the old chapter is officially closed. Think about what that psychology does for your negotiating position when everything falls apart at work. You are not scared. You are not desperate. You do not have a mortgage payment riding on whether or not you keep this job because you planned for this moment with the same seriousness that other people plan for retirement. Except you are not waiting until you are 65. There is also a tax dimension to this that very few people understand. When you are an employee, You are taxed first and you spend what remains. When you own a business, even a small one, you spend on business expenses first and pay tax on what remains. The shift from employee to business owner is not just psychological, it is arithmetically superior in almost every scenario, and the people who understand this feel an urgency to make that transition that their colleagues simply cannot relate to. Now, some of you watching this are thinking, this sounds risky. What if the timing is wrong? What if the business is not ready? And that is a fair concern. The people who execute this successfully are not reckless. They are patient to the point of being almost maddening. They do not pull the trigger until the infrastructure is solid. They do not move until the math is clearly on their side. The risk is not eliminated, but it is engineered down to a manageable level. The real risk, the one nobody wants to say out loud, is staying. Staying in a role that caps your income, limits your time, and requires you to build someone else's dream for 40 years in exchange for a pension that may or may not still exist when you get there. That is the risk that should keep you up at night. The self-made millionaires who used this strategy did not stumble into it. They studied it, reverse engineered it from people who had already done it, and then executed it with a level of calm that their coworkers could not understand. Because from the outside, it looked like bad luck. From the inside, it looked like graduation day. If this video opened a door in your mind that you did not know was there, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because we go deep on the strategies that actually move the needle on wealth. Leave a comment below and tell me where you are in your journey, whether you are still in the corporate world planning your exit or whether you already made the leap. I read every single one. The job was never the destination. It was always just the starting capital. Now you know what to do with it.